Welcome to the Generation Elevation podcast, a conscious, connected platform for those who are ready to manifest their dream life. I'm your host, Elise Riley, a former PT, now motivational speaker, igniting empowerment and transformation all across the globe. Here at Generation Elevation, we are committed to bringing you the most inspiring guests who will share their stories, wisdom, and advice to help you progress closer to living a life of your own terms. Welcome back to another episode of the Generation Elevation podcast. Today, I am joined with a very special guest who is a curious thinker improving the world's mental health. He's an ex-professional surfer and the founder of the Good Human Factory and the host of the Good Humans podcast. So with that said, I would like to introduce to you today Cooper Chapman. Hey, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me in your little studio here. It's nice to catch up and not have to travel too far from home, just around the corner from where I live.
I know, such a coincidence that is the case. And before we do get into it today, Cooper, I would like to just start by talking how we kind of met and then go from there. Is that cool?
Yeah, of course.
Cool. So Cooper is someone that's been coming in my field as of recently, and I think I saw him on Jackson Tippett's podcast doing an interview, or whether he was interviewing you, I'm not sure, but I kept hearing about this Cooper guy, who is this Cooper? And so I remember going to the beach not long ago, and I think I saw a reel on my feed of you that morning. And as everyone knows, all the listeners know, that I'm always someone to trust my intuition, to follow wherever I'm meant to go for the day. Usually I'll be trusting what my guidance is saying. And so for me, I ended up going to the beach and I was like, okay, where shall I sit? Where's the best spot for me today? And so I kept walking. Is this it? Is this it? Nope. Keep going. And then it was like right here, between all of these people, and I'm sitting down and I see this guy over the side of me reading this book, and I'm like, oh, that looks like a personal development book. He looks like he's very similar to the beliefs that I have and what I'm doing in this world, and I like his energy. And I remember a girl coming up to you and talking to you saying, oh, hey, Cooper. I'm like, Of course, I'm sitting next to you right now. And so I sent you a message because for me at that time, I was so afraid to actually come up and talk to you, because I was like, oh, I don't want to be that weird person at the beach to introduce myself. So I was like, all right, I'll just send you a message, see if it is actually you. And it turned out it was, and you left. And funnily enough, a couple hours later, I'm leaving. I get the message, okay, all right, time to go home, get some work done. And as I'm leaving, you're actually coming back to the beach. I'm like, oh, now I have to introduce myself. Now I have to say, like, okay, I really want you to come on my podcast. And that was kind of it, I guess. And it was funny, when I messaged you the other day, I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's finally organize a time. And you just said, yep, I'm super flexible, super easy. And it just felt like it was meant to be. So I'm really excited for the magic that we will create in this episode today.
Absolutely, yeah. Here we are. I live right on the beach down there at Mermaid, so you just picked the right path and ran into me, and yeah, I'm stoked to be here. It should be a really fun chat. I'm lucky enough to share my story quite a bit through my own podcast and a few other podcasts, but this is a pretty unique one, so I'm excited to see the questions you fire at me and what you want to know about my life.
Yeah, so let's just get started straight into it. Some of my listeners may not know who you are, so I guess what are some key points about what you're doing at the moment with Good Humans? What is that? And just, I guess, shuffle off a few ideas from there.
Yeah, I mean, a highlighter pitch. I grew up as a professional surfer. I lived in Sydney until I was 25 years old. I moved up to Byron Bay right in the peak of COVID in 2020 to escape a little bit and start a bit of a new chapter. I had started my mental health organisation, the Good Human Factory, off the back of my youngest sister losing a few friends to suicide, which I'm sure we'll go through all this stuff a bit more. But yeah, moved up north, spent a year or two sort of building this business and trying to develop my own skills as a speaker, as a podcast host, as somebody who's just a curious thinker and trying to connect the dots and encourage people to discover new ways to think and feel and different ways that they can take care of their mental health. So yeah, I moved up north about 2.5 years ago now and been loving every minute of it, and kind of surfing's taken the back burner now. Business has started to really take off, and yeah, it's been special. I've been able to impact a lot of people over the past 2 years since starting this, and yeah, excited for what the future's got to come as well.
So powerful. And I've been seeing some of the work that you have been doing with the Good Humans Factory, and it's super special. And that's why I was like, I need to have Cooper on my show, because it's very much in alignment with the message of Generation Elevation. So let's start from the start. You said that you were a professional athlete doing surfing. So what was that experience like for you, especially like coming into that and then the mindset of an athlete and progressing to now what you do today?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people in the planet. I got to travel the world surfing and going to the most amazing places, meeting amazing people, and competing at not quite the highest level of surfing. What we call the top level is the top 32 in the world. The second tour is the qualifying tour, which is still international. And I competed on that tour for about 10 years trying to get into the top 30, but I was always ranked sort of between 40 and 70 in the world for about 10 years, which looking back was pretty good, but also was disappointing. I didn't get to the next level. But yeah, I had quite a lot of success as a junior. I was in that sort of top 2 to 3 guys in Australia, won Australian titles when I was 15 in high school, got to represent the country, wear the green and gold at multiple World Junior Games, which was really special. And then progressing into adult life and sort of post high school surfing, once I started taking it as a bit more of a career, I was lucky enough to be getting paid pretty decent money when I finished school. And had, a great couple of years sort of transitioning onto the world stage, into the International Opens tour was really fun. But then once I got to that international tour, I started to struggle a little bit, because this will tie into the whole mental health thing. I got to this stage where I wasn't succeeding as much as I'd sort of expected myself to, and my sponsors expected me to, my family had expected me to. And I'd put all this pressure on myself, and my whole identity, my whole self-worth was based around Cooper Chapman, the pro surfer. And then once my results started to decline a little bit, I started to kind of suffer a bit mentally, and I couldn't really work out what was going on. And then I went and spoke to my sports psychologist. I've been lucky to be able to work alongside a sports psychologist with Surfing Australia for many years. And one of the things that we spoke about back, in my early 20s was I said, I'm struggling with all this. And he said, mate, it's so common to feel that way. So many of us base our self-worth, our identity on our career, whether we're getting the promotion at work, whether we're winning our sporting events, whether we're, succeeding on this level that is quite just performance-based. Whereas as a human, I was, I didn't really know who I was. So he said to me, I want you to stop basing your self-worth and your identity on your performances, and I want you to start basing it on your values. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, what are your values? And I was like, I don't really know. And he's like, well, I want you to try and find what your values are and then learn how to live to them. And that set me on a bit of a journey throughout my 20s, which I didn't realize at the time really set me up for the business that I run today. And that's exactly what my workshop and what my keynote I present all the time is about, encouraging people to understand what those values were. But yeah, going back to my surfing, once I lost my sponsor at 23, I think I was sponsored by Hurley for about 7 years. I was sponsored by Rip Curl for 6 years before that. So from the age of 10, I'd been a sponsored athlete, and I still had sponsors once I lost Hurley, but just not the major one that was paying me like $50,000 a year at one stage.
Yeah.
So then I had to come up with this big decision, am I going to continue traveling the world, but I have to make up $30,000, $40,000 a year working. So I ended up getting a whole bunch of random jobs, from working at surf schools to working as a labourer and trying to find this balance. And that was a hard sort of chapter of my life to deal with, that identity crisis that I'd kind of been feeling. I'd kind of started to understand my values, but then that was just a big kick in the teeth, and straight the mindset went back to, I'm not enough. Who am I without surfing? And yeah, it took me kind of throughout my 20s and the length of my surf career to really start to understand and shift that mindset. But I feel like I'm at a place now that, can look back and reflect and just be so grateful for the journey that I'd been on to get to where I am now.
I truly believe that these times in our life that challenge us, that test us, that limit us, they happen for us. Those things that happen to us happen for us. And so what was that turning point for you, Cooper, whereby those things that were happening to you, the results declining, losing the sponsors, to then going through this identity crisis, how did this actually happen for you? What was that turning point for you to shift your mindset to go, okay, what can I create from this?
I mean, I guess the first step was my sports psych exposing me to a different way of thinking and starting that understanding and awareness that we can kind of choose to be the victim or the hero of our story. And it took years to get to that mindset, and I still struggle with this stuff all the time. But there was a moment where I was in South Africa for a surf comp, and I remember I'd just been working like full time to get there as a labourer for my friend's landscaping business. And I got there and I was just there with like such an average mindset, like, oh, how come those guys are getting paid and I'm not? Like, I'm higher than them on the ratings, I'm doing better, I surf better than them. And I just like caught myself in this mindset. And then I was like, I'd learned about gratitude multiple times, but never really put it into practice. And I was paddling out for a heat, or I was out there for a free surf one day, and I was just like, wait a second, all my mates that I go to work with are at home still digging holes, and I'm over here surfing. Like, I'm so lucky. And I understand that I'm very privileged and had awesome opportunities and things to be grateful for. But once I started to realize, wait a sec, I can look through the lens of a grateful mindset or a victim mindset here, and it completely changed the way I saw the world. And it goes back and forth all the time, but I'm trying to really continue to keep pushing the pendulum to this sort of gratitude mindset and realize, yeah, there's a lot of average things that happen in our life, but if we can put our focus and really focus in on the things that are good, there is generally quite a few things each day that we can focus on.
100%. What you focus on expands. Like, where you've placed your attention, that is what's going to be most prevalent for you. So if you're thinking about, oh, how is that person better than me? And like, why is this happening to me? Then that whole problem is going to expand itself. Whereas if you're like, actually, you know what? I get to do this today. Like, I get to go out for a surf. I get to sit down with you and have a podcast, like all of these kinds of things. That then, I guess, expands that energy of gratitude and abundance. And from that frequency, from that energy, you attract more of that onto you as well, I believe anyway. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, anything you focus your energy on expands. And yeah, it's just a better way to live. I feel like the way that we speak to ourselves, the way that we view the world is, ends up being like our emotions. So it's the more that we can, start to be super conscious and aware of what we're thinking about and why, and asking ourselves those questions, then we can start to steer the ship in the direction that we want to go, rather than letting circumstances dictate our life.
It's really cool that you've come to this awareness at such a young age, especially as a male. I feel like this is my perception from my years of professional experience as a mindset coach. Like, people don't come to this awareness until something like they get hit by that bus, right? It's like the feathers, the bricks of the bus. And then usually when you get hit by the bus, you have this awakening of awareness and realizations of, actually, maybe I'm not that pro surfer and maybe I want to be something else. And realizing that your identity is not just one thing, that you're a multifaceted being and you're multidimensional and have many versions and facets of you. And it's really cool that you've come to such awareness at such a young age, and now you're helping other people, other young people, come to this conclusion as well, and sharing this message of gratitude. I think it's really amazing.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's something that I'd been lucky enough, like you said, to discover quite young, and I feel like for me, it's profoundly changed my life, looking at life through a lens of values and trying to be a good human. So, yeah, thanks.
So what is your definition of a good human?
This is a good question. I ask this to every one of my guests, and this is going to change all the time for me. But for me, the definition of a good human is somebody who's self-aware and understands that their actions have consequences, understanding for your own personal overall well-being that if you want something to change, you need to do something to change, and taking accountability for that. And then vice versa. If you want to see other people in your life change, like helping them, assisting them on their way. So I think a good human is just someone who's self-aware and understands that what they do and their actions has consequences. That wasn't my favorite way to answer that, but
that's okay. How about, what would be your 3 tips for my listeners on how to become more aware of your thoughts and the way you're thinking?
I mean, step 1, learn to meditate. I'm sure most of your listeners probably do meditate or understand the power of meditation, but be brutally honest with yourself. Are you doing it every day? And if you're not, try and start getting some accountability around it. It's something that I do struggle with, but I really try and come back to something. I do breath work every single morning now, and it's something that is a massive benefit for me. But I think that's just step 1, because then you can actually witness those thoughts and how erratic generally they are. For most of us, we have 70,000 thoughts a day. And for the average person, 70% of them are negative and repetitive. So it's like, once you can be witness of that and detach, I think that's step 1. Other tips I think just being curious, like literally listening to people's stories with an open mind and going, oh, I wonder why they think that way, or like, oh, I wonder what might happen if I put their stuff into my life, or pull the best parts out of everybody else's story and add it into yours. And if it doesn't work, great, try the next thing. I think once we get in a rigid mindset that like, oh, we know what works for us, then we're just at a dead end, because I feel like you should always be looking to kind of grow through life. If you can go through life linear, or you can grow through life. And in my mind, growing through life is what we should all be aspiring to do. We can always learn more. We can always be more. We can always help people more. It's, how do you develop that capacity? Number 3 for understanding. What was the question? Understanding.
So how to become more aware and witness your thoughts and things like this.
Yeah. And then I think as well, practicing gratitude every single night. And I come back to that because once we start to really zoom in each day on 3 things that went well, it makes us realize how often we're thinking in our head that things are going poorly, but it's like, well, just try and bring that shift back across to the other side and go, well, what are the good things as well? Mm-hmm. A lot of us, like I said, 70% of our thoughts are negative. And if that's happening all day, every day, then more, not negative things are going to get attracted into your life, but it's going to become more common than if you kind of try and bring that pendulum over to the grateful mindset. It's like, oh, what are those things each day that are good? And you start to realize that quite often our thoughts aren't really true or that helpful.
Mm-hmm. Have you read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle?
I've read The Power of Now. I don't think I've read A New Earth yet.
You have to read A New Earth. Everyone says they've read A Power of Now. I'm like, no, A New Earth. That's where it's at. In A New Earth, he says that you are not the awareness. Oh, no, you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness of them. Yeah. So these thoughts that come up, whether they're negative or not, realizing that not actually you are actually the energy that is witnessing them come through. So it's really cool when maybe you are not having a great day and these maybe doubts start to come up, these fears, realizing actually, you know what, that's not who I am. It's really powerful. And Cooper, I'm really curious to hear, what is your process that you go through to express gratitude? Because I've actually done a gratitude podcast. I've done a breathwork meditation podcast. So this is amazing, all the things that you're saying, but I'd really love to hear your process of having gratitude for your day.
There's obviously a lot of ways that we can practice gratitude, whether it's sending people a gratitude message, writing a letter. But the way that I try and encourage people to do it and the way that I've done it is just every single night, 3 things you're grateful for. There's obviously different ways you can do it, whether you get a diary. I say to my workshop participants, when you're brushing your teeth at night, you're already spending a minute doing it each night. Just think in your head, what are 3 things that went well today? It's an easy way to stack the habit on top. Creating healthy habits for some reason is super hard for all of us. And all of us brush our teeth every night, but 90% of us aren't doing anything for our mental health each day. Mm-hmm. So stack that on top when you're brushing your teeth. What are 3 things that went well? Or if you want a bit of accountability, I've got this thing on Instagram now called the 1% Good Club, which is a great leeway into me promoting this. But basically 602 days on the day of recording this ago, I was lying down doing a meditation and I was like thinking in my head, like we all do, couldn't slow my brain down. And I was like, this is so important that I do this meditation every day. And then I was like, I'm at schools telling kids about the importance of meditating and gratitude, but I personally knew that I wasn't doing it every day myself. So I was like, all right, I need the accountability. And I knew that you're like 800% more likely to maintain a habit or do something if you have an accountability group. So I was like, all right, in my head, I'm like, what's 1% of a day? Surely we can give 1% of our day to our mental health. It's the biggest killer of people aged 14 to 44 in the country. So I was like, stopped my meditation about 5 minutes through a 10-minute meditation and got on my calculator. I was like, what's 1% of a 24-hour day? It turns out to be just over 14 minutes. So I was like, all right, surely we can give 1% of our day. And I was like, what can I fill in 14 minutes that's good for my mental health? I was like, meditation, bang, 10 minutes in the morning meditation, 4 minutes of sitting at night thinking about things that went well. 14 minutes a day for my mental health. So I was like, I'll start these Instagram group chats and I'll send a meditation each morning. And then I'll write my 3 gratitudes on my Instagram story and send it in the group chat to these people. And like I said, 600 days ago it started. I think the first week there was like 50 or 60 members. Now there's close to 1,000 members from people all around the world in the last every day I've done it for 600 days. I think we're just around about to hit like 200,000 gratitudes have been written in over the last 2 years.
Wow.
Which is, it's cool. It's just cool to read other people's gratitudes and go, oh, that's what they're grateful for. Maybe I can find something in my day, because they're literally just grateful that somebody smiled at them when they walk past. Like, reading other people's can be a really cool way to like reflect on your own life and realize that things are pretty good. So yeah, if anyone wants to join who's listening, it's literally completely free. It always will be. You get a guided meditation every morning sent to you by me. Join a group of 100 people and, yeah, write your gratitudes each night. So you just send @The Good Human Factory on Instagram a DM saying, I want to join the club.
Yeah, I love that so much. What are the 3 things that you are grateful for today, Cooper?
Oh, today I'm grateful that I just got to go and catch up with my friends and have a fun surf behind the jet ski, which I haven't done for a minute.
That's cool.
Grateful to come and have this chat with you, meet somebody new, get to share my story, and then I'm about to go after here back to my office and order about 1,500 items to start getting ready to print new merch next week. So
amazing.
Busy.
That's some really cool things to be grateful for.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I live a pretty exciting life.
Yeah, you do. Me too. And so that is a perfect segue thread into Good Humans. What was the catalyst for you, like, creating that? Obviously, you mentioned earlier in the podcast that, like, there was a few people got really struggling with mental health, and yourself had that mindset shift, realizing that gratitude is really important, and if people could just put aside 14 minutes a day, it could benefit their mental health so much. So what was that thing for you that was like, all right, I'm going to fully commit to creating this movement and I'm going to show up every single day to help these people? Why do you do what you do?
I mean, the story goes, I'd learned all this stuff from my sports psychologist. I'd always, like I said, been very curious. How can I improve my own mental health? Had some family history with it, with no idea at all to be somebody who works in the area of mental health. And then my younger sister, Sophia, she was in her last year of high school, I think 4 years ago now. And she came home from school one day and she said a friend had taken his life. And me and my whole family were sitting around the dinner table, kind of as you do, like, oh, that's terrible. Like, are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. Like, support her. She was okay with it, to be honest. And then 2 weeks later, she came home and another friend had taken his life. And that was when I was just like, you know what? Like, what am I doing to help this situation? I'm like traveling the world, living the best life ever. I kind of had this like guilt almost, like, what have I done to deserve this amazing life? And then about 2 months before that, I'd run some surf camps to try and raise some money for my travel with like 6 to 8 kids. And at the camps, I did like surfing, gym training, skating, nutrition, and we did like a meditation during it. And after the workshop or the weekend, all the parents kind of the kids said they loved the meditation part of it. Once again, when that happened, that was another flag that I didn't really see was an angle. But then, yeah, when my sister said that second friend lost his life to suicide, I was like, you know what, I need to try and do something. So I was like, called my old school teacher. My dad said to me, he's like, mate, you obviously care about your mental health. Maybe you can go and talk to some kids at schools about it. I was like, all right. So I called my old school teacher and I was like, mate, I just want to come in and maybe share with some kids some of these skills that, like, I know I never learned any of this stuff about, like, kindness, gratitude, mindfulness. It did look a lot different, my workshop at the start, to what it does now. But I just wanted to go in, and if like one kid learned something that might make their life 1% better, like, I've done my job. And that was, 3 years ago now. That was kind of 2019. And throughout that year, I might have done like 2 workshops, like one at a school and one at a local footy club that was through a friend. So it was like nothing in 2019. 2020 kind of came around and I was like, oh, I'll get into it a bit more, but I'm still competing full time. I'm still working 50 hours a week as a tradie and trying to, like, I wouldn't even call it a business. At the start, it was just kind of like a little side thing just to, like, if I could help some people.
Passion project.
Exactly. And then COVID hit and that was kind of a big, not light bulb moment, but that was the moment where I was like, all right, what am I going to do? I got fired from my job as a builder because I was meant to have a surf comp and it got cancelled. But then because it got cancelled, I thought I could go on this surf trip with my other friends and film some content. And my boss was like, nah, you like didn't really tell us that you weren't coming. After the comp got cancelled, like, well, there's not a job for you when you come back. And I was like, all right, screw it. What am I going to do? And then JobKeeper came in the New South Wales government. And I was like, my accountant was like, because your surf comps are all cancelled, you can get this $750 a week. So I was like, all right. And then a week later, this opportunity to move to Byron with a bunch of friends came up and I was like, sweet. So me and my mate Alex Hayes just like bolted up to Byron. And once I moved in there, my comps were all cancelled. I was still like driving and training, surfing at Surfing Australia's training centre. But that was when I was like, all right, I need to educate myself a bit better. So I did like a couple like Yale University short courses on science of wellbeing, like a mental health first aid course. Started to build some more skills in the area and develop my workshop while schools were all out because of COVID. But that was when I started to like develop other parts of the business, realize that I don't want to just be a speaking person. Like I want to do merchandise. I want to do a podcast. I want to build like an ambassador community. I wanted to have all these different prongs that were all under the umbrella of connecting curious minds with simple mental health strategies. And there's a lot of ways that I could communicate that message. So yeah, that was 2020. Schools kind of started coming back 21. I did a couple workshops like at the start of the year, probably 10, 15. Once again, like really just learning how to do, like I had no idea about business.
Was that just through like word of mouth? Or?
Exactly. All through word of mouth.
That's great.
Like at the start, like any advice for anyone wanting to get into this sort of line of work, I wish I offered my workshop for free more and got feedback rather than like try to charge small amounts, and just found it hard to like get my foot in the door. And that's as well, like I'm very lucky. I already had a bit of a profile in the community from my surfing and whatnot. And then 2021 came around. It was still a major side hustle, not really like making any money from it, like bits and pieces here and there. And then I went overseas for 4 months for surf comps at the end of 2021. So when you're the only person doing anything for your business, I basically had to pull the handbrake for 4 months and went overseas. Came back, and then it took me a few months to get the momentum going again, early 2022. But then from about May 2022, I just had like a good run of bookings. I started to get some good feedback and testimonials from clients. I landed a few like pretty cool jobs to like speak for like Apple and Telstra and McDonald's and like a bunch of cool corporate ones, but also amazing. Schools. And then, I guess last year in 2022, I ended up speaking to like close to 15,000 students and podcast numbers I've shown you just before have really started to grow since I took it on myself. And it's just been really cool learning a whole new thing. Like I look at what I'm doing, like I'm a second year apprentice at what I'm doing. So I'm like, I feel like I've got so much more growth and so much more to learn, but just enjoying the process of it all right now.
Yeah, so awesome and really inspiring for myself as well, because I'm definitely on a similar trajectory with the speaking thing and getting booked for schools and all that kind of stuff, helping people with athlete mindset and everything like that. And so I'm curious to know, what is the future vision for Good Humans Factory in the podcast?
I mean, I've got a few different angles that I potentially want to take it. I've just been having a few different internal conversations lately, whether I want to sort of expand outways and start to employ people. But I mean, I could do that right now, but I also have a few close friends around me who have businesses with 10, 15, 20 employees, and they all look so busy, unhappy and stressed. And I'm like, is that really what I want? So I'm like going through this internal battle of like chasing, I'd almost call it like the American dream kind of style, like get the house, build the business, build a big team, your business makes more money. But then I'm like, but then it kind of takes away from what I really want to create my own business, which is to have the freedom to do what I want.
Yeah.
So I'm working right now on making ways that I can keep my team super slim and just continue to elevate my own value and be able to charge more for my corporate keynotes, still be able to offer my school stuff at a price that's affordable for everyone, but then grow the podcast. That way it's kind of just me. Eventually I've got the idea to a lot of my ambassadors with the Good Human Factory are like some of the best young athletes in the country, from like world champions in wakeboarding to motocross to snowboarding to tennis, diving, all these amazing people. And I understand how hard it is to build the credibility to get into schools now, because I've done it over the last couple of years. So I want to give all my athletes a bit of a post-career option to teach them how to speak, teach them how to share their story, because I know not every kid's going to connect with my story, but there might be a kid at a school on the Gold Coast that really connects with Harry Bink, who's a motocross world champ. So he'll go in and speak at that school under the Good Human Factory. So that's kind of one way I potentially want to get it to scaling. But the next like 12 to 18 months, I still feel like there's so much room for me to get into far more schools, to get to far more corporates. Like initially I was like, I'm going to have to redo my workshop each year. But now I'm like, there's still like so many people who haven't heard what I've had to say, and I've gotten a lot better at it. The next 12 months is kind of just employed someone to help with bookings for me, try and get myself to as many places as possible, continue to spread the message, continue to grow the podcast. I've got some really exciting merch coming out in the next month or two. Also got, obviously the 1% Club continues to grow. Trying to just, offer different solutions and different touch points, because I know we all learn at different ways. Some people might learn from the podcast, someone might learn from the workshop, someone might learn from being in the 1%, someone might learn from watching our YouTube and watching the stories of our ambassadors. So just trying to like continue to expand each avenue. And hopefully one of them sort of pops and has that overnight success moment that we all dream of, because I feel like everything I've done has been done kind of nice at a pace. I was a bit like eager to like, oh, why hasn't anyone done a news story on what I've done? Oh, why haven't like I had any media coverage on anything? And now I'm learning that you need to like pitch your stories to media to actually like you have to have a PR person like to get stuff. But now I've got the runs on the board, I think, from the last 2 years, and I've collected data from all my workshops. I know that what I'm doing is working, that I can probably stand a bit taller in front of the media once hopefully I do get some stories this year done about what I'm doing, which can then obviously get me in front of more people to do more workshops, to grow the podcast numbers, and hopefully just continue to spread information that's helping people better themselves.
Amazing I love this so much. And I have also been listening to your podcast as well, and I remember hearing that you were doing like a sober, how many months was it? Like,
doing 12 months off.
12 months off drinking. Cool. So I'd love to hear your reasoning behind why you do that. And I think like it will benefit a lot of people listening, especially males, because for me personally, I spoke about my New Year's experience where the past like 12 months I've been completely sober as well, and I don't go out and drink. And in the past, I used to feel like I needed to fit in with everyone else, and that was the vehicle for that. So I'm curious to hear your experience by being in like the sporting industry, being sober, and how you've gone with that, going to social outings and things like this.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. To be honest, it's something that I wouldn't say I'd ever struggled with, but I'd say from the age of really 15, I drank most weekends, and almost every opportunity to drink, I would have said yes. And then I had a neuroscientist on my podcast in April 2022, last year, this awesome chick from over in the UK called Nicole Vignola, and we were just chatting about the effects of a whole range of things in the brain, from drugs and alcohol to gratitude to exercise to sleep. And when we spoke about alcohol, I was like, far out, this, like, we just kind of get sheltered from this information. They don't promote anywhere on the media or anything about the negative effects of alcohol, because so much of their funding is done by sponsorship of alcohol and gambling companies. So I started to just really think about that and question it and be like, wait, who's really in control? Like these alcohol companies and the marketing, or me? And most people are like, oh, I'm in control. It's like, yeah, but could you take a month off? And like, I've got a wedding on, or like there's always an excuse. And I was the exact same. And I was like, you know what? On that podcast, I was like, you know what? I'm turning 28 in about 2 weeks. I'll obviously like 18 to 28, 10 years legally drinking. Maybe I can give myself a year off. And I was like, screw it, I'll take a year off. So I just announced it live on the podcast, and now I've been documenting the journey. I do a podcast episode, like a little 5-minute episode each week, just sort of documenting the opportunities I had to drink, that I said no, what that experience was like, how people reacted, how much better I'm feeling from not having hangovers, how much better I'm feeling from just having that clarity of not trying to chase the dragon of like, oh, it's Friday, like what are we doing this weekend? It's like, oh, it's a Friday, sweet, I'm going to the farmers markets tomorrow. It's no different to a Wednesday night for me now. It's like just my week just kind of has a far better flow to it, rather than this up and down roller coaster of being drunk, being hungover. Like it's just been such a big change. And I'm 10 months in now. I'll probably start drinking again once my year's up, but I think with a far different lens than I have for the past 15 years, because now I understand, that quite often we're just drinking to like cover up something, or we're drinking to escape something. It's like, no, I want to be a bit more upfront about how I'm feeling. And if there's a reason to drink, a celebration or something, great. But if it's kind of escaping an emotion or trying to commiserate, it's like, no, I want to pick my moments moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. I resonate with that entirely. And for me in the past, I would drink for confidence because I didn't feel confident enough to be myself around my friends. Like, I'm not drunk enough yet, I can't dance. It's like, well, that's actually just a limiting belief that I placed upon myself. And so after doing such like deep, heavy mindset work over the past like year and a half, I don't need that anymore. I went to Fisher actually in Sydney and was completely sober. And it was just a really amazing experience just to observe how I felt around everyone else that was potentially drinking and things like this, and just the fact that I could dance all night, and it was so amazing to wake up the next day feeling great. Then, go do the mindfulness practices like meditation, breath work, go to the beach, go for a walk, have a nice like acai bowl, and just feel on top of the world. Like, yes, I just had an amazing night with my amazing friends that I feel comfortable around, who are elevating me, who aren't pressuring me to do anything I don't want to. And also then like just being able to like continue on with the next day and your practices that are bettering yourself. Like you said earlier, your life is based off your decisions that you make, and obviously your decisions that you are making about what you're doing, whether it be drinking, whether it be like improving your podcast and doing it yourself and making sure you're growing, like that's all compounding to where you want to go and where you want to take this mission, which is greater impact and helping people improve their mental health.
Absolutely.
So Cooper, where can my guests and where can my listeners find you if they're wanting to connect with you, if they want to jump on the 1% group? Where can they find you?
To find me directly, just at Cooper Chapman on Instagram, TikTok at Cooper Chapman _. It's kind of where I post a lot of my podcast content, a lot of my snippets. If you want to find The Good Human Factory, it's just The Good Human Factory on Instagram as well. Also, the website's just thegoodhumanfactory.com. Find all the information about the workshops, the podcasts, the merch, basically everything you want to know about The Good Human Factory you can find on the website. But yeah, I'm pretty open. If you ever have any questions about what I do, reach out on Instagram. I'm pretty good at getting back to people within a few days. It kind of gets a bit hectic sometimes, but yeah, I'm always open to hearing people's stories and learning about their journeys too.
Yeah, amazing. And Cooper, one last question for you today. I ask all my guests this, and it doesn't have to be resonating to anything that we've spoken about today. I just want you to tune into the first thing that comes to your mind or to your heart, whatever. And the question is this. You ready?
Let's go.
Cool. If you could give the listeners today one piece of advice that you think that they need to hear right now, what would that be?
I'll give you my favorite quote that I always go back to in my head when I'm struggling. The act of confidence comes before the feeling of confidence. And I use that for whether I get on stage, whether I'm doing anything in life, especially when you're trying something new that's a bit out of your comfort zone, like understanding that you're not going to feel confident, but quite often you have to like own it and act like you are. And then the feeling starts to come once you own it. So it's a bit counterintuitive and a bit of a paradox sometimes that the act of confidence comes before the feeling, but it is very true. Once we kind of trick our mind and trick our body into feeling confident, then the confidence generally like flows through. So yeah, that's my little quote. Act of confidence comes before the feeling.
Yes, I love that so much. And to just add on that thread, excitement is the same feeling as fear, just with breath. So if you are feeling that fear or that anxiety, just breathe. Like Cooper said before, meditation, breath work, just add some breathing into that feeling and you might start to realize that what you are experiencing is actually the excitement of the unknown and what's to come. So thank you so much for joining me today and sharing what you've done with the Good Humans Factory. And I'm really excited to see your journey and what you do and the impact that you will have on the rest of the world in the next few months to come.
Well, thank you. It's been awesome to catch up and get to know you a little bit. And yeah, thanks for letting me share my story.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of the Generation Elevation community. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to leave a 5-star rating, written review, share, and tag me on Instagram at elise.riley. Until next time, keep loving, keep learning, and keep rising.